Yes, we are corrected.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, thank you. Today is October 7th, 2024, at 7 o'clock p.m. My name is Jennifer Grace. I'm a public utility law judge with the Maryland Public Service Commission. I've been assigned to handle this matter. This is Maryland Public Service Commission case number 9744. It's captioned in the matter of the application of Hagerstown Light Department for authority to increase its rates and charges for electric service. We're here for a evening public comment hearing tonight. The purpose of this hearing is twofold. The first half of the hearing will be for the parties in the matter, the attorneys for each of the parties that are in the evidentiary hearing and in the case will give a brief statement on who they are, who they represent, and what their role is in this matter. The Hagerstown Light Department attorney will then give a brief statement of what we're talking about here, what the application is, and then we'll turn around and we'll open it up to the public for me to receive comments from the public to consider when I'm making a decision in this case. The application, the testimony, and the other filings in this matter are available on the Public Service Commission's website. That's www.psc.state.md.us, and you can access those by typing in 9744 in the case search. The hearings are open to the public and can be watched on the Public Utility Law Judge YouTube channel. It's a very long address, but there are handouts right on the table when you come in the door that give you that address if you want to take a look at the hearings. Written comments are also accepted by the commission. Those have to be done on the commission's website. One has already been filed in this matter, and those written comments must be received by October the 11th. And they must reference case number 9744. If you don't want to file a written comment on the commission's website, you can also send it by U.S. mail to Jamie Bergen, Chief Clerk, Maryland Public Service Commission, 6 St. Paul Street, 16th floor, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. This young man right here is making a recording of the hearing and is making a transcript, so taking everyone's words and making them readable by me so I can consider this matter, consider everything that is said tonight when I make a decision in this matter. Anything said in this room has to be said either at the podium or at a microphone, or else it doesn't make it into the record and it can't be considered by me. So I'm going to ask the attorneys in this matter who have appeared before me before to approach the podium to state and spell your first and last name for the court reporter, and then to respond appropriately. And then I will ask any member of the public who wants to speak to do the same thing. So let's start by introducing the parties. The attorney for Hagerstown Light Department.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Wait a second. Approach the podium, please. Now you may go ahead.
My name is Thomas Rudebush, Thomas Thomas, Rudebush, Rudebusch, of the law firm of Duncan Weinberg, Ginzer, and Pembroke, here representing the Hagerstown Light Department in case number 9744.
Thank you. Office of Staff Counsel.
Good evening, Your Honor. Lloyd Spivak for the, that's L-L-O-Y-D, S as in Sam, P as in Peter, I, V as in Victor, A, K as in Kite. I'm here on behalf of the staff of the Public Service Commission of Maryland. The commission staff is basically the commission's technical advisors, and we are tasked by law to complete the public record in any case before the commission, or in this case before the public utility law judges, and that generally entails reviewing the materials that are filed by whatever company files the case, and conducting substantial discovery on those materials, usually in the form of what we call data requests, which is seeking additional information from the company that made the filing, reviewing the information we get and other information we may be aware of, and putting together a staff position as to what we think is most in the public interest. And we will then add our testimony to the record.
Thank you, Mr. Spivak. Office of People's Counsel?
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Milen Tekla Mikhail. First name Meilen, last name Teklemicchael. And I am here representing the Maryland Office of People's Counsel. The Office of the People's Counsel represents the interests of Maryland residential ratepayers in proceedings before the Maryland Public Service Commission. Currently in this case, we have submitted our direct testimony and rebuttal testimony, and these could be viewed publicly on the Public Service Commission's website. I'm here today to hear any comments the public might have in regards to this case, and OPC will consider these comments as we continue to develop our position in this case. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, the application was filed on June 13th with the Maryland Public Service Commission. Staff and OPC filed direct testimony on August 22nd. The applicant and OPC filed rebuttal testimony on September 19th. The next round of testimony is due to be filed on October the 10th. And then this case is currently set for 3 days of hearings from October the 15th through the 17th. Now, Mr. Rudabush, if you would give a brief presentation of what the applicant is looking for.
Thank you, Your Honor. Happy to do so. As you mentioned, the application was filed earlier this year. There's been testimony filed, and we've been engaged in discovery. First of all, the City of Hagerstown Light Department is not-for-profit. It's owned by the city for the benefit of city customers. There are no investors. There's no profit taken by the city or by the company for investors. Any money that is recovered is for the benefit of the city and the city's utility. The city's light department has not had a rate case since 2005, almost 20 years. It is currently operating at a loss. It is losing its cash reserves quickly. So it has filed for a rate increase of about 8.7%, which is about $2.3 million annually. The commission considered the application and suspended it under section 4.204 of the Public Utilities article. And I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that's the first part of the hearing where some information is given to the public. We'll now turn to the second part of the hearing where we hear any statements from the public that the public wishes to make. There was a sign-up sheet, but I don't think anybody signed up. If you want to, it's not a huge crowd tonight. If you want to decide who wants to go first and approach the podium, and just when you approach the podium, make sure you state your name and spell it for the court reporter, please.
My name is Ansabar Naru, N''S''A''B''A''R, last name Naru, N-E-R-U. I have a few things written out here real quick. We're going to go over. All right, a couple points that I want to address that this particular proposal, how it affects the community itself. Economic burden on residents. Hagerstown median household income is significantly lower than the state average, standing at approximately $48,481. Many residents already struggle financially, with over 22% living below the poverty line. This rate is double the Maryland average. So Hagerstown has a huge problem with poverty. A rate increase would disproportionately affect low-income households, exacerbating economic hardship in a city where many are already living paycheck to paycheck. There's already been increases on all kinds of things due to the economic situation of this country. Inflation is at a staggering rate. Cost of living has went up, cost of food has went up, cost of energy has gone up already, and they're proposing an increase of energy costs. I don't believe most of the people in this city can withstand that burden. Second point, 2, potential increased crime rates. Studies suggest that a correlation between financial stress and crime rates. Increasing utility costs would add financial pressure on struggling families, potentially leading to increased crime as people face desperate economic conditions. Hagerstown already has a poverty rate of 22.9%, and adding further financial burdens could worsen social issues. Also connected to that, there's been a noticeable increase in theft in Hagerstown, Maryland, partly due to economic stress and factors such as inflation and job security. Property crime rates, including theft, are already higher than the national average in this area. While the rate of violent crime remains relatively stable, theft and vehicle-related crimes have been on the rise, with some incidents attributed to the current financial pressures facing many residents. This reflects the broader state and national trends influenced by economic uncertainty. So we are already seeing the impact of having this extra financial stress imposed on people. People turn to crime. We understand that we have a huge history that clearly outlines what happens when people are put in stressful situations. 3, impact on small business. I'm a small business owner. Not in Hagerstown, but I am a small business owner. Hagerstown is home to many small businesses that operate on tight margins. A utility rate increase would raise their operating costs, which could lead to higher prices for consumers, layoffs, or even closures. This in turn could increase unemployment and strain the local economy further, especially in the current inflationary climate where business is already struggling with rising costs. I've been in Hagerstown, I think I lived in here about 10 years now. One thing I have noticed is that a lot of these small businesses struggle. It's a struggle for a lot of small businesses in here. I don't see many stay too open and have high rates of success. Increasing this, I know, would definitely cripple many, many small business owners. I think I read, they said they were proposing an 8.7 increase is what it would average out to most people. That's a significant chunk of change for a lot of people. Point 4, inflation and living costs. With inflation impacting essential goods and services, adding a utility rate hike will further stretch household budgets. A rise in utility rates during high inflation could push more families into financial instability, leading to an increased need for public assistance, which could strain local government resources. 5, housing affordability crisis. As housing costs rise across the country, Hagerstown residents already face challenges with housing affordability. An increase in utility rates will raise the overall cost of living, potentially driving some residents into homelessness or forcing them to relocate, reducing population stability and damaging community cohesion. As we've all seen, we pay attention to what's going on in our country here. People are struggling. It's a point that cannot be ignored. People are struggling in this economy. It's not easy for people out here. Companies says they're running at their reserves are running at a deficit. They're not running in profit. I mean, he didn't explain why that is. What where's all this money going? Where's the money being lost at? I mean, I think we need to know that too. What is the money needed for? There's a few questions that I would have that I haven't heard answered. My final point is number 6 here, undermining renewable energy goals. If the Hagerstown Light Department is increasing rates without offering significant improvements in renewable energy infrastructure or green energy options, it could be seen as a backward step. If the rate increase is instead allocated towards non-sustainable energy resources, it may not align with broader environmental goals, which is becoming an increasingly important issue for local governments and citizens. So that's what I have at this moment. I don't know if we're able to ask the state's attorney, the company's attorney, questions, to get some questions answered. I only figured out about this because I happened to be dropping some permits off today, and there was a sign out front. So I don't think many people in the city know. I asked a couple of people, not many people know. I don't really know what's going on. I just read a sign and said, let me come see what's up with this thing here. So is that something we could possibly get some questions answered as well?
So I can't answer any questions because I'm not allowed to comment on a matter that's pending before me. I absolutely can take a break and go off the record and leave the room and allow you to ask some questions of the attorney representing the company. And then we can come in and I can go back on the record. Did you have some specific questions that you wanted to ask?
Not, just kind of freeball it and get some information based on basic things. I know the first question is about the funds. What are the funds allocated for? What is the purpose of it? What are the company's goals with this extra revenue they're trying to generate? Certain things, and
Okay. Let's do this. Let's finish with some comments of others, and then I'll make there be an opportunity to ask some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nehru. Does anybody else from the public want to speak?
Hello, Your Honor.
Hello.
My name is Clayton Marquis, ClaytonMarquis. I've been a Hagerstown Light customer for over 10 years. I lived in the county for my entire life, which is 37 years. And this is a drastic increase for the rate of electric in the city of Hagerstown. As the previous gentleman said, we have a high poverty rate in this town and county, but it's much more severe in the city limits. And you can see that by driving down the street. I mean, there's a lot of very poor people in Hagerstown. And I do understand that Hagerstown has not increased their rates in quite some time, but I do think at 8.7% is kind of a drastic increase at one time. And again, I do understand that they haven't done it in a while, but it's a lot easier for customers to build up to it than to just have an 8.7 increase at one time. As everyone's well aware, we're in a global pandemic. Some say we're out of the pandemic. We're still, every day, I think we still feel the effects of the global pandemic that happened. Due to many different factors. I mean, inflation is an all-time high. It has to do with, price gouging, corporate greed, higher cost of things. It's a huge network of why inflation is the way it is. This will only add to that. I know this has nothing to do with the electric, but Hagerstown Wastewater, they just increased their rates by 13%. I don't think the PSC regulates water management. I'm not 100% sure on that. Every single year, Columbia Gas increases their rates. The city of Hagerstown also just, I would say, since I lived here, and maybe I don't know the exact numbers, but I mean, for trash, and these numbers aren't exactly right, but they're pretty close. For basically, if you live in the city of Hagerstown, on your water bill, you have to get city trash. And when I was younger, don't know exactly what year this was, I think it was about $27 a quarter. And now it's about $47 a quarter. So that has nearly doubled the trash ever since I've been a resident here, that's in 10 years. again, they just increased the wastewater, the water bill has just increased, and they've also added like a Chesapeake Bay protection fee on there. In the past, the residents of Hagerstown used to be responsible for their sidewalks if they cracked or anything, but recently they also added another fee on there to like basically now they manage the sidewalks. So Hagerstown residents are getting squeezed kind of from every single angle. And I just think 8.7 is a drastic increase and it will affect people. And many, many people here that paycheck to paycheck or go negative every month because they got to put stuff on their credit cards. It also, in Hagerstown, Hagerstown has very old buildings here. So I don't know what the average age of the buildings are, but like you drive down the street, many, many buildings are 100+ years old, which means that they have typically poorer insulation than a newer building would. Different materials, not as airtight. And some people do have gas for heat, which can be expensive as well. But a lot of the poverty-stricken residents or people that have just lower incomes, a lot of them have baseboard heat. And baseboard heat is extraordinarily expensive, especially with the older houses. So, I mean, if this rate, if this full rate is instilled, I really think people this winter are going to decide whether or not they're going to stay warm or they're going to turn their heat down. And obviously, energy shouldn't be wasted, heat should be managed well, but I don't know if you've ever lived in a house with baseboard heat in an old house. It is very costly. I mean, I've seen people have $300-400 electric bills in the winter because their heating system is baseboard heat. And these people typically are tenants who rent, so they have no control over that. They can't, I'm just gonna go get a gas furnace or I'm gonna install an electric heat pump in my house to, lower my utility costs or heating costs. And I think that's mainly what I wanted to say. Also, as the previous gentleman said, it is going to affect small business and big business, and it's going to increase the prices of products. And that's just another facet of what this will do to local residents. I had one more thing I wanted to say, I think. So I've lived in Hagerstown since 2013. I've lived in Washington County my entire life. And I'm a small business owner in the city, and I also have my residence in the city, and I also am a landlord as well. And many units here, or buildings, different things, some of them have joint electric. Like sometimes you have a duplex, and each unit has their own electric bill, but there might be like a third bill that's kind of like the whole building. Or it's a larger building and like there's common areas, or the landlord just pays for the electric. And if the electric increases, it is going to, I pride myself in keeping my rents very low and very fair. And that's a huge reason why I don't have very much turnover, because the rent in Hagerstown has skyrocketed. And when I say skyrocketed, I mean, I'm sure it's a nationwide issue as well, but compared to property values, Hagerstown is the third poorest county in all of Maryland. Like, this is not Montgomery County, this is not Frederick County, this is not Anne Arundel. We are one of the poorest counties. Other than I think it's Garrett, and I want to say Allegheny. We are the third one. And I think there's 23 counties in Maryland, possibly 22 or 24. So we are the lower 5%, or the lower 13 to 15% of the poorest, population in the whole state. And it is going to affect people. It's going to raise rents. It's going to raise prices. And I do understand that they haven't raised in a while. I said it before, but I just think it's an exorbitant percent increase. I just think 8.7 is a lot to grant someone at one time. I do understand that you said that the gentleman said that they are operating at a loss. Then I just wish they would have kind of ramped it up a little more slowly for us. And as the previous gentleman who just spoke before me, I had some questions too. The lawyer said that this is going to, which I think is a very vague statement, that this increase is gonna be used for the betterment of Hagerstown Light Company, or Hagerstown Light. You know, it's just a very vague statement, like, is any of this money gonna be used to give raises to the workers and to like the, you know, it's not a CEO, but like the director of Hagerstown Light? Like, is this increase going to give them more money, the people running the city? I'm not saying people don't deserve raises, but if they are increasing the rate by 8.7% on some of the poorest people in this whole state. I mean, Maryland is traditionally one of the richest states in the 50 states, but we don't see that here. We have a high poverty rate, we are poor here, and it's just going to increase that. And I don't think it's fair for someone who has baseboard heat, you increase it 8.7%, and it's leaking out of their house, the heat is, and it's very expensive, that if that increase is going to go to be giving raises to, you know, the higher ups there, I don't see how that makes sense. Again, I'm not in charge of Hagerstown Light, and I do know some about utilities. I don't know tons about utilities, but I just think it is going to drastically affect the population of this town, and it's going to hit the poor population severely more than the people who are above the poverty line. Also want to add that Hagerstown does also charge a 5% late fee on their light bills if you're late. I do understand that you need to pay your bills on time and that it's important to do that, but 5% is a lot. So if you're late 1 month, if it's increased by 8.7%, then you add another 5% on that, which a lot of people do pay their bills late because their paycheck comes this day, it's due that day. I'm not saying that Hagerstown Light has a they have a fair, they give you your bill, I think you have 3 weeks to pay it, so it's not like it's getting paid the next day. But I think that 5% is a lot. I also think that there should be some grace with the late fee, and that's probably not addressed in this hearing. But, whenever you're used to paying $100 a month, and then in the winter your bill is $400 a month, a lot of people will be late on that. It's a huge thing, and I just wanted, the baseboard heat is a problem for a lot of the poor tenants because it just is outrageous how much they have to pay, and they just have no control over that, and they could rent a better place, but that's more expensive. And if you go on Zillow or any rental company right now, they're renting 2 bedrooms for $1,900. That's probably a nice 2-bedroom, but that used to rent for $975, and it's almost doubled in the last 5 years for rent. So, rent's up, gas is up, water's up, trash is up, now electric's going up. And I do understand that, they have to work on the system. I would be much happier if they said, we're raising it 8.7%, and, we're gonna fix this, this, and this. Like, the power grid's bad here. These poles need replaced. Like, we gotta do that. I don't think that and maybe they can tell us that. I don't know that answer. But I just thought his response to what they're gonna do with the increase of funds was exceptionally vague. And I wish that they kind of had an outline plan of what to do with the funds. Maybe they do, and I just don't know it. I think that kind of concludes my statements. I just want to reiterate that it is going to affect the poorest people of this city the most, by far. And I just think it's very sad when people have to decide either to buy food or heat their homes. They have to make that decision because their rates went. So that's all that I have to say.
Mr. Marquise, I want to thank you for your testimony. I don't allow anyone to ask questions of
Yes, I understand.
public.
Yeah, I can.
No.
Oh.
I would never allow one of the attorneys to ask a question from a member of the public because I wouldn't want any member of the public to feel cross-examined.
Okay.
But my note-taking has failed me tonight, and so
Okay.
I was wondering if I could ask you a friendly
Sure.
question. What was the percentage rate of the Hagertown wastewater increase?
I believe it was 13%.
Okay.
So
I think she would know.
13 and 14, wastewater and sewer, they were different. One was 13, one was 14. I don't know which one was which.
Right, so 13.5% around.
So I don't.
And this happened in July 1st it happened. And they also raised the rate, I don't know the exact number, I could find this out. They added a stormwater fee, Chesapeake Bay fee to the water, and they have increased the trash fee, which you don't have a choice to do. I mean, I do think Hagerstown should have unified trash, so that if we didn't, that we would have trash all over the streets. But there's no choice in that. Like when you get your water bill, they charge you $47 a quarter per unit, which ends up being nearly, what's $190 a year. So that's in addition to everything else. They did just get people new cans, which was very nice of the city to do, but it's just a lot, just a lot. And Columbia Gas is the only gas utility in this county, at least in Hagerstown. And they try to increase their rates all the time too, and they succeed. They don't typically succeed the full amount, but just every single utility is going up, and I guess that's probably why Hagerstown Light is increasing their rates, because things are obviously more expensive. Electric costs more to buy, but I just wish it would have been tiered more, and they could have done a 3% rate increase every 2 years for the last couple of years if that was an option. I think 8.7 is a lot to swallow with everything else that the world's been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and the record inflation and the record price gouging and the record corporate greed that just drives every single thing up. And everyone who goes to the store sees how much everything else is. And I just think utility is a little bit different than a sofa. I just think you could not buy a sofa. You could not buy a new car. You can manage that. You need electric to live. Everyone needs electric to live. And I know it's an old system, but it's not super reliable. Like, if they were offering an 8.7 increase, and yeah, you're always gonna have your lights on. I know there's storms and there's stuff happens, but sometimes there's times where blocks and blocks are out at the time, and there's not even a storm. So I do understand the acts of God and weather we can't control, and maybe that's why they want the increase to help the grid and fix all those issues. I just wish that was clearly outlined. So I think that's all that I have to say, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Marquis. For the record, I'm not sure if the court reporter got it. Mr. Marquis was helped out with the answer to my question by another member of the public who hasn't spoken yet. And the answer was 13% and 14% for wastewater and sewer. Not sure which percent was for which, so that should make it onto the record. Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Heather Tapley, HeatherTapley. I was not prepared to speak tonight, so I'm a little bit nervous. I definitely wanted to piggyback off of the statements of both of the previous gentlemen. I think the biggest concern that I have is the rate in which it's proposed to increase. The same statement that Clay made was, that it's a extremely high percentage increase at one time, and we have already just had the water increase as well. Speaking from personal experience, my rent has gone up. I'm a renter in town. I've lived here my entire life, but have rented probably the last five years, maybe 6 years, and my rent has almost doubled in the original price that I was at. So that, and adding on the increase in water, the increase in insurance for your car, all of those things. I know that I personally have a lot of friends that are in the lower poverty part of this community that do struggle, and that have gone to get assistance for different utilities and struggle to even have that as an option. May it be for electric or rent assistance or housing, whatever that is called. But it's hard for people to make ends meet, or if they are struggling, to be able to get assistance. So it will greatly affect our community. I also know that this increase is not going towards the workers. This is a separate matter, that this is just only increasing the pricing for the utility. and it's not affecting their pay, that's separate. So I think that should be looked at in two different manners. I think if it were overall affecting the pay of the workers, that's more to take into consideration, but since it's not, it is a huge increase at one time. And again, it would be nice for an outline of what those costs will be going to. I understand that almost everything has increased over the last, 2 years rapidly. So it'd be nice to know what the cost would be going to, or if there would be a way that, because there's no way that this is not going to go through at some rate. But it would be nice if we would be able to have either a gradual increase or to make sure that there are grid updates that are coming, because we have been having a lot of issues with those lately when we've had power outages. There were some really bad storms over the summer that took out a few larger of the grids, I believe. But yes, so I would just really appreciate if you could take all of these things into consideration. A lot of our community is lower income and do live paycheck to paycheck and can barely, afford rent or afford gas or any of those things, and don't have any money set aside for emergency purposes. So I just really urge you to take those things into consideration for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I can't be the only person who can speak, right? So, my name is Stephanie Stamper, Stephanie. Last name Stamper, Stamper. I'm a lifelong Washington County resident. I am a landlord in the city, and I'm a real estate agent in the state of Maryland. So I just, a lot of what's already been said, I would totally agree with. The city is a poor area. It does affect people. It is a large increase. Like Heather said, it's probably needed, but to make such a large increase all at once, I think that's the issue. And I would question why they waited 20 years almost to make an increase. Why not make, 0.5% every year instead of throwing the 8.7 in a time when economical issues are already occurring across the country. And like Clay said, Washington County is one of the poorest counties in the state of Maryland, with the city center being, a target of poverty area. So again, I think it's something that probably is going to go through. I don't think the increase should be that great, and maybe they should consider in the future stepping it in with a little more consideration to those who are actually being affected by the rate increase. So just wanted to kind of come and, someone mentioned they saw the sign out there that this morning or when they came to the building. I'm sure you guys have to announce this through certain means, but you can see of all the number of people in the city of Hagerstown, in Washington County, 4 people showed up. And I know 3 of those people. So I was invited by one of them. I think I'm here because there are people who didn't know about it, and there are people who would say the same thing that we're all saying, but didn't know about it, and so aren't here to say. So I'm just want to say for them too. So thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Stamper.
May I add one thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Come to the podium first, please.
Clayton Marquis, I spelled it earlier. Like Stephanie said, I told some people about this and they wanted to come, but they're either working 2 jobs or the one parent staying home watching the kids, don't want to bring their kids here. So I had people who wanted to come and they could not come because they're working 65 hours a week and they can't take off on a Monday night because they work during the day, and some people work, evening work as well, like two congruent jobs. A lot of my tenants have two forms of employment because they have to have that in order to pay their utility bills and their rent. So, and I know this has nothing to do with this hearing, and it would be a different avenue to change this, but the advertising for this is very limited. I think there's a 3x3 in the Herald Mail, and they probably put it on their website. Maybe it's on their Facebook. I mean, I doubt that many people, maybe they have a lot of followers on Facebook because they have the outages and stuff. I would be curious to wonder if they posted this on Facebook, if Hagerstown Light Company did or not. But I think a lot of people would be here if they knew what was at stake, if they could make it, and if they knew how much it really would affect them. But they're not even aware of the meeting, and that's why people weren't here.
Thank you.
I have some additional statements as well prepared.
Sure.
Mr. Naru, and Samar Naru again. Got a couple more statements that I prepared while I was sitting there, but I just want to piggyback off of what I believe his name is Clay just said. The lack of people here, I don't want you to think that that represents anything. And one of the things I just was talking about, they advertise in the Herald Mail. I believe the Herald Mail has a paywall at this point. That's a inferior, inappropriate way to let people advertise these things. If there is a paywall, and I believe there is a paywall up, the city needs to look to a different resource for advertising their things. There's plenty of things, social media, Facebook, a lot of people in the city on Facebook, Instagram, all these other things. They're using a very analog method. People don't really use papers anymore. It's a digital paper, but people don't really use those much more. A couple more things I prepared while I sit there listening to everybody else there. Historically, once utility rates are raised, they do not go back down. Even if the economic circumstances that led to the increase improve, this is a major concern because, one, fixed revenue models. Utility companies often operate on fixed revenue models, meaning once rates increase, they rarely decrease unless forced by regulation. There is little incentive for the Hagerstown Light Department to reduce rates after a financial need is addressed, leaving residents stuck with higher utility bills permanently, even during times of economic improvement. Two, compounding effects over time. Even small increases in utility rates can compound over time, leading to much higher living costs in the long run. Residents may find themselves paying much more than they originally anticipated. When these increases happen gradually but consistently, the cumulative effect can be substantial for households that are already struggling financially. Three, no relief during economic downturns. Rate increases remain in place during recessions or downturns, adding stress to residents who are already facing job losses, reduced income, or inflation. The utility company's lack of flexibility in adjusting rates downward during tough times can result in increased financial pressure on residents. Minimal incentive for accountability. Once rates are increased, utility companies often have little incentive to efficiently manage resources or cut costs. Higher rates can mask inefficiencies in operations, with the financial burden passed on to the consumer, while there is little transparency or accountability on how those additional funds are being used. Now, I mentioned a little bit about recession, and anybody who pays attention to economics or an economy, or if they're involved in markets or anything like that, know that all economists, I don't think there's one economist I've listened to or researched or any articles I read that have, where there's economists not saying that there is a major recession looming on this nation. And so my next set of comments are geared towards just that. Number one, economic instability. The looming threat of recession makes this a risky time to increase utility rates. As inflation remains high, and many economic indicators suggest an impending recession, Increasing rates will only add more to financial strain to residents who may already be bracing for job losses, reduced income, and rising living costs. In times of recession, disposable income drops, and essential costs like utilities become a heavier burden on households. 2, job losses and economic downturn. In a recession, job losses typically increase, and even those with employment may face wage freezes or cuts. With household incomes declining, adding higher utility bills will exacerbate financial stress. Residents may struggle to pay for necessities like food, rent, and utilities, which could lead to higher rates of delinquency on utility bills, further straining local support services. Negative impact on local businesses. During recessions, businesses often experience reduced consumer spending, forcing them to cut costs or even close down. An increase in utility rates could contribute to further cost-cutting measures, such as layoffs or reduced hours for employees, and in the worst cases, lead to permanent business closures. This would further harm the local economy and increase unemployment rates. 4, prolonged financial recovery. Historically, recessions take time to recover from, and even when economic conditions improve, individuals and businesses are often slow to bounce back financially. Raising utility rates during a potential recession could slow the recovery process, as residents and businesses continue to be burdened by higher fixed costs, even as they work to regain financial stability. And last but not least, number 5, increased demand for public assistance. A utility rate increase in the middle of a recession will likely lead to a surge in demand for public assistance programs. As more residents struggle to make ends meet, the city may see increased applications for utility assistance programs, food banks, and other social service programs, placing additional strain on local government resources. Like I said, there's not much data out here saying where anybody's saying that there isn't economic cycles. We know there's always the ups and downs. We've been on the up and we're going down. Some people may say we're already in the recession. Hasn't been officially announced yet, but all indicators are pointing to there's one on the horizon, and this proposed rate increase would only hurt people more when that does happen. It's not should it happen, when it does happen. It would be incredibly hard on, as everybody over there just behind me just stated, one of the poorest communities in the state of Maryland.
Thank you. I think there's someone who has signed up to participate virtually. Is there a Michelle Rosner on the virtual invite? Mr. Rudabush, can you see the screen over there? Can you see it? Is there an additional person on that screen? No?
No, it's just you here.
Okay. All right. So, a lot of specific information has been filed in this case. This is my double-sided copy of what I've been taking a look at that's in the docket. And the public has access to that, and there are some little handouts right by the front that give full access to all of the information, so all of the specific questions can be answered that way. I think all of the questions are fairly similar, so Mr. Rudabush, I'm not sure as counsel for the applicant if you're able to answer some of those questions on the record, or if not, then I would ask that you take the contact information of the folks who have the questions and have someone from the company contact them to try to answer the questions and then report back to the parties.
Yes, Your Honor. I would prefer not to go into an extended monologue about the rate case. I would like to address one point, which is that there is no separation between the rate increase and the employees of the utilities wages. The wages are an expense that are covered by the rates. It's all the same thing. As to your suggestion that we'll take contact information and address people's questions as best we can, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, so what I'm gonna ask is I'm gonna ask that anyone here who has questions, give your contact information to Mr. Rudabush after the hearing is over. He will facilitate someone from Hagerstown to contact you to try to answer your questions. And then, Mr. Rudabush, if you would send an email to all of the parties reporting back on those conversations, please, so that we can know that that has been taken care of.
Thank you.
There is an opportunity for more public comment to be considered in this case. On these little handouts is the address or the website where written public comments can be received before October the 11th. There's also the address on where folks can watch this hearing that we just had on YouTube if they want more information. And there's also an address for kind of a description on how to get all of the paperwork that's been filed in the case on the commission website if you have any questions. So if you know of other people in the community that weren't able to make it tonight, or that wish to give public comment, or that wish to know more about the filing, all of the information that you need is on these pieces of paper that are by on the table by the front door. With that, I don't have any other questions of the parties. I would simply thank the members of the public who showed up tonight. It is really important that we hear from people who are local to whatever cases we're considering, and I really appreciate the time you took to come and give comment tonight. And your comment will be considered when I make a decision in the case. So thank you very much. Mr. Court Reporter, we can go off the record.
Can I ask a question? It doesn't have to go on the record. So when will you make your decision? What is that day or week?
So, and that's a procedural question, so I can't answer it. So the hearings are set for October 15th, 16th, and maybe 17th if we need all of those days. Then the parties file briefs. I issue a proposed order, should be around November 25th. And after that, the parties or the commission, because I work for the Maryland Public Service Commission, can, by its own motion, or the parties can appeal. And so there's a final order issued by the commission. It should be on January 28th.
And the hearings are held in Baltimore.
Yes.
And once the final decision is made on the 28th, they could increase it to 29th. Then. I mean, that's like right when they would start if they wish. Is that true? Would they increase, or they'd like give like a
That's
1 month like warning? If you get into that.
That's generally true.
That's where they can start.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Generally, in most cases. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.